ask me what's the number one thing that beginning or struggling readers are missing, I would tell you it's one thing. Do you have a guess? As far as their skills, it's sound-based decoding. But as far as some activity that they're missing, it's oral reading practice with a teacher's feedback. Oral reading practice with a teacher's feedback is the number one way to move a kid from here to here on the Reading Achievement Richter scale. Are you ready to hear about ways tonight that you can accelerate those readers and squeeze in more reading practice that matters? That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. So I'm glad you're here. Welcome. I am Dr. Marnie Ginsberg of Reading Simplified, and it's our mission here to help streamline reading instruction and accelerate students' reading achievement. So I'm excited to talk to you tonight about how you can find shortcuts to get students to achieve more by squeezing in more oral reading practice with that valuable teacher's feedback. And part of the reason I think we don't get in enough oral reading practice is we haven't kind of come up with a new routine after Round Robin died. And many of you have probably been told, well, you shouldn't do Round Robin reading, right? What are the problems with Round Robin reading? I would love to hear what you think. And if you don't know that term, what it means in the U.S. is that the teacher leads the whole class through a text, but only one child reads at a time in a circle or in a round. And so everyone takes a turn, reads for a short little bit. The teacher's at the front of the class, and everyone's listening while one child at a time reads. So what's the problem with that routine? Researchers have been poo-pooing it for a while, but what are the reasons that we shouldn't do it? And what can we take from that old-fashioned protocol and make it modern and research-based and effective? That's what we're going to be talking about tonight. So say hi if you're here, and let me know where you're from, whether this is live or in the replay. I'll still be checking back through this Facebook video to hear your comments and say hello to you. So I'm so glad you're joining us. We're going to be talking about how to be strategic with oral reading practice and say goodbye to Round Robin, but have it be really reborn. Okay, so we're going to talk about Round Robin Reborn tonight. And this will be ways that you can shortcut your reading instructional time, your outlay of energy, and more importantly, accelerate your students' reading achievement. So let's see who's here tonight. Thank you guys for being here. Welcome back, Jennifer. And thanks for tagging some friends, Jennifer. Yes. Oh, Susan's making a great point. She says, and we learn so much when she hears them read. Let's see if I can find the best place for that. That is right. Very great diagnostic information. Nice point. Who else is in the house tonight? Laura says students only attend to what they read, less reading practice, so no guarantees students are following along. Absolutely true. So that's the dynamic that goes on in your classic Round Robin where one student's reading and everyone else is dozing off. Either it's too hard for them to keep up or they're bored. I was a kid, you may be not surprised to know that I really liked reading. And so I was kind of ahead and I would be so bored. I wanted to get to the end of the story. In fact, I would read to the end and also try to figure out where was my place going to come up so that I could also pick up the story whoever, the last student left. So it was dreary for me. But what are some other reasons that you guys have experienced or heard that Round Robin's bad? And Jennifer says some kids are extremely shy and don't like to read in front of their peers. They don't like to feel foolish in front of their friends. So true. I think that's probably the number one reason I wouldn't do it. I'm very sensitive as a reading tutor to kids' anxiety about reading, and I don't want to put them on the spot in front of 28 kids when they may not be good at it, especially if the passage is at grade level and their abilities are beneath that. Great points. And as Sarah said, just as Laura said, the ones who aren't reading are not following along. Welcome, Fatima. And Laura agrees with Susan. Yes. How can we get the more oral reading in? So we know it's important, but we're just not allowed to do Round Robin. We got some good reasons for not doing it. But what are we going to do instead? Okay, so if you're just joining us, we're talking about how to squeeze in more strategic oral reading practice, how to say goodbye to round robin, but to do something different that's going to be get these students to get the practice that they need. So we're going to talk about the importance of strategic practice. And we're in the middle of a 4-week summer series on shortcuts for small group instruction. So we're particularly talking about that, which is oral reading in the context of small groups, which is most timely because I wouldn't do much reading aloud in front of the whole class, other than the teacher doing the modeling of a great read aloud and interactive conversations. So if you have been following this series, you know we're also doing a contest. So anyone who tags a friend will have the chance to win this collection of Read It word cards. So if you just tag a friend here on Facebook, then you can maybe win this collection of Read It word cards, okay? So that is tied into an activity we talked about last week called Read It and Teaching the Blend as You Read approach. And so we're going to be giving that away. One freebie, one person will win that prize just by tagging a friend. We'll draw a name from all 4 weeks of this summer series. We're in week 3 right now. And the other thing I have for you tonight is a little sample of guided reading practice brought to you by the Reading Simplified Academy. So I will show you that. So Reading Simplified Academy is a membership where I teach activities and strategies to streamline reading instruction, similar to what I do here as a complimentary way on Facebook Live, but this is just the best of the best that we offer. And let's see, here is the Reading Simplified Academy, and we've got these different units. And in the guided reading unit, we've got a lot of passages for short vowel reading, and so I'm going to be sharing with you tonight, let's see if I can find it, an example from, here we go, from our academy. So in a few minutes, I'll give you a link so you can snag this short vowel sampler. Hopefully that'll be a little inspiration to get some extra practice that will align with the suggestions I'm going to make for you all tonight. Okay, so don't forget, tag a friend, and you might win this, this little collection. So how can we be strategic about our guided reading? And why is actually, first of all, I'm going to back up. Why is it even so important? Many of you may be familiar with the U.S. National Reading Panel Report, which is a meta-analysis of lots of different types of studies. And they did an in-depth analysis of fluency and what supported it. And this is what they found. They did a very thorough search for studies, and that search provided a persuasive case that repeated reading and other procedures that have students reading passages orally multiple times while receiving guidance and feedback from peers, parents, or teachers are effective in improving a variety of skills. These procedures help improve students' reading ability at least through grade 5, and they help improve the reading of students with learning problems much later than that. And that is indeed what I have found as a reading tutor, that students who even are in high school, if they're behind, I want to hear them read, and I want to hear them reread, and I want to give them coaching practice. So does this resonate with you? I mean, to some extent, it may be common sense, but research has often also demonstrated these things have to happen. We have to have reading practice, we have to have feedback, and we also have to have rereading practice. So we're going to be talking about how to fold that in and why it's not always happening. Do you think this is an important topic? Another little background piece of knowledge that I kind of started out with at the beginning was, I said, if you were here from the get-go, I said the big thing that struggling readers in particular, or beginning readers, don't have is practice. And in Keith Stanovich's most famous Matthew Effects paper, he makes that point that one of the most pervasive causes of Matthew effects on achievement is differential practice. And so we want to not have some kids reading a lot and some who are most struggling not reading. That's the differential practice. If you're not familiar with Matthew effects, Stanovich was making the case of that biblical principle found in the book of Matthew, that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. That happens very early on in reading. When kids don't get decoding quickly. They don't read a lot, and so therefore they struggle with reading for the rest of their lives. That's that differential practice that we're talking about. And even though it's an oldie, he cites some pretty good studies that are also similar to what you might see in modern days. Let me get to that. Let's see. Let's start here. So in that Stanovich-Matthew affects paper, he cited this study from B. Miller. And B. Miller studied kids reading in the classroom and found that the high groups in reading were reading on average 12 words a day in October of their first grade year. The average group was reading almost the same amount of words, but look at that low group. They were barely reading at all. In fact, that's what he found. They had no words that they were reading. So in October, first grade, there's no reading practice happening in some classrooms. This is a problem, right? How are we going to avoid it? We can't go back to Roundrobin to get that practice because that's just going to make those kids at the bottom most insecure. Look what happens in April. So yes, they're now reading, but it's still not that much. The high group is reading 81 words a minute. Words per session, but the low group is only reading 31. So that's the differential practice that we're talking about. And guess what? I am at camp this week. Can you see this beautiful picture behind me? This is the camp I'm at. And so I don't really have the same kind of setup, and that noise you're hearing, or at least I'm hearing, is a door that I need to shut. So hang with me, and I'll be back to tell you more about how this the reading practice that we need to squeeze in can be done in an effective way. Be right back. So, don't you just love live TV? So this is the problem, right? The kids who are struggling don't get the practice. And this is an old study, but it's not unusual. You can keep hearing this research from the field. And Dick Allington was famous for saying, if they don't ever read, how are they going to get good? And he wrote a paper on that, and he found something similar, that particularly the lower students were not reading. And then some other recent studies just since 2010 have cited that on average, early elementary kids and kids in special education, they're getting about 1 minute of reading practice. So we all know, we're focused on reading. We know that if kids are getting that little, it ain't gonna happen for them, right? So how are we gonna squeeze it in? So that's what I wanna talk about tonight. We started off by saying, well, round-robin reading has got to go, right? It's got some issues with it, and you all pointed them out. Let me just kind of refresh our memory. First of all, round-robin presents the limited practice per student. If you have 28 kids in the class, and each one's taking a turn, and even if you read for 30 minutes, are they going to even be able to get to 1 minute? Not likely. Many kids are embarrassed, and if they're not embarrassed, they may be bored. They're probably not following along while the other kids reading. Maybe they're looking out the window or passing notes. There's a limited accountability with this model. And in other words, did they actually read? Can you ensure that they have read? Are you asking them the questions to make sure that their eyes are following along? And even if they're listening to the story, they may not have their eyes on print. So that's some benefit to hear the story, but not having the eyes on print reduces their growth as in their word identification abilities, which for struggling readers is their number one issue. And then there's limited teacher feedback. So even if little Sally makes a mistake, someone else is probably going to pop in with the answer, and the teacher can't coach her as the teacher knows she needs coaching. And so the most important thing that the National Reading Panel found, that importance of feedback with practice, is probably not happening in round-robin. Okay, so what we're going to do is talk about round-robin reading reborn. I was doing a professional development session recently, and some teachers said that they were not able to have turns in their small group sessions. So I consider small groups to be very different than whole groups. So round-robin of 28 kids, 25 kids, to me is very different than turn-taking with 4 or 5 kids. What do you guys think of that? I'm going to present to you a model of reading in small groups that does not have to be lacking those things that round-robin reading does. So we don't have to have limited feedback. We don't have to have limited accountability. We don't have to have limited practice opportunities. So this is a set of strategic routines that I'm going to recommend to you that will allow you to save time and also accelerate readers more quickly. And I don't know if you can see that. Let me pull that down here. Michelle says, oh my goodness, love having the research to back up what I knew was right to do. Right. A lot of research is kind of like that. Yes. And okay, so let's see. What are these routines that I'm going to recommend to you? Well, the first thing is I think that you should have homogeneous small reading groups. I don't think they should be fixed. They should be flexible across the course of the year. But when you get kids generally reading at the same level, it's a lot easier for them to not feel embarrassed because everyone's reading about in their range. It's a lot easier to plan your lessons. It's a lot easier to give them texts that meet their needs. So there are certainly limitations in past research on homogeneous groups because they have been inflexible, and the lower level kids have not gotten the right practice that they've needed to be able to accelerate. But I think tonight, coupled with some other things that we've been sharing here at Read Simplify, we'll present to you a model that does not keep those kiddos from getting the practice they need. In fact, I think it does the exact opposite. And I'm going to show you an example of students reading with this kind of approach in general. So here are some principles that I think can guide a small group reading instructional session so that you can increase the amount of words that each child reads with feedback and have that repeated reading as the National Reading Panel suggested. So first of all, match your text with word work. In other words, if you are having your kids learn the short vowel A and the short vowel I, read a text that has the short vowel A and the short vowel I in a lot of places so they get the transferability. And that's one big time saver. If you go straight from a word work lesson on short A and short I, reviewing those sounds, and then you read a passage that has only one or two short vowel words and then a lot of high frequency words and a lot of irregular words like a lot of level texts have, you're just not going to get the transfer. Okay, so that's kind of the groundwork for what I'm talking about. And it'll also ensure that you're getting the student's most pressing need. If they need to learn at this stage short vowels, then give them the practice for that. Later on, they'll move up the continuum and target a particular long vowel. And in our example, you'll see that. Now, here's the one thing that some people might interpret as round reading. I do not believe it has to be as negative as round reading because you are there as a teacher watching all the kids read, and you can encourage them to follow along by pointing at their text and telling them that you are going to ask them to follow with their eyes. Maybe they can even hold a bookmark under the text and move down the page as their friend reads. So if one child is reading at one time and the others are following with the same text, this gives the teacher the opportunity to give that super important individualized feedback so that the student can blend as you read, something we talk here a lot about at Read and Simplify, which is so helpful for getting kids off the ground rapidly. Then the teacher can give that specific feedback, or the teacher can give the phonics feedback that they need, or the teacher can give using context feedback. So I think getting each kid to read with the teacher zooming in on the feedback for that specific child's needs for that moment, 1 out of 4 or 1 out of 5 kids, is a great instructional routine. And here are some reasons that it's not going to have the same risks as a traditional whole group, whole class round robin. So one thing you can do is to have random turn taking so that you don't just go from here to here to here. So one thing that you could do is maybe play a game, or for instance, you could have a joker card and just play that card randomly, and so someone might be in the middle of a sentence or might be at the end of the sentence, and then you lay the joker card at somebody else's table and they know that they need to pick up immediately right there. So it's one way of holding them accountable. They're in that small group and that can do it. So when you are able to give that feedback to each student one after the other, then they're going to get the 2 core decoding strategies that they need: blend as you read and flex it. If you go to readingsimplified.com/start-here, you can find out about read it and the blend as you read decoding strategy, which is so important for those beginners. So you can hold them accountable that way. There's other ways to hold them accountable, and we'll get into that through the rereading. Then after the students read the passage, it can be a short passage, and that way everybody gets enough practice, and then there's time for the repeated reading. Then the teacher models fluent reading, and the students follow along, and they get the second wave of that text. So it's extra practice. It's the repetition that the National Reading Panel and many research studies have found is necessary. And there's that modeling of good reading. So one of the concerns about Roundrobin, well, those kids are stuttering through it. It's not a good example, not good modeling. Well, we can follow it up with a model by the teacher, okay? Then that would be the second read. Then the third read would maybe the students can choral read. They've done the first read through, they've practiced their decoding, and maybe all together in a quiet choral reading with the teacher being most dominant to give them the fluent example. They could do that to kind of end their lesson with the teacher that day. Then they could go off and read it independently, or with a buddy, or with a teaching assistant, or a volunteer, or with a headset from the computer. Sometimes I record myself with voice memos and just send that off with an iPod with children so that they get more repetition. And that's a super important part of this routine. It comes back to that accountability. So not only are you asking them to follow along when they're there with you, but you want them to master that text by tomorrow. And that's where the rereading really, the power of the rereading really kicks in, and that's also how you get so much growth with those kiddos. They will get better with their decoding if they master that text. They will get better with those high frequency sight words that are in that text, and they will become more fluent and getting their phrasing right. So that is a kind of a radical alteration from mainstream approach right now, because we typically are saying, I hear this from teachers a lot, I normally have them reread it once and then we don't revisit it, or maybe we reread it once a day for a few days. But if they get a high dosage in one day of rereading that short little text, it will amaze you how quickly they will absorb the high frequency sight words, how quickly their fluency will grow, and of course their short vowel knowledge or their long vowel knowledge, it will also go through the roof. So then that's where the accountability kicks in. You ask them the next day to come to you with the text, and you listen to them read it. Maybe they read it all here after rereading as a choral group again, and you just spot check, listen carefully to see who's stumbling and who's not. Maybe showcase one or two students individually really quickly afterwards. So it can be a quick check of seeing if they did what they were supposed to do when they went out into their small group time, or their like their literacy centers, or homework. If you have some kids that are doing homework at home, homework reading. Now, if it's too hard for one kid and everyone else is succeeding, then reduce the task for that child, or give that child extra TLC. Maybe more time with you, maybe more time with a reading assistant, maybe more time with a device to listen along and hear that good modeling. Maybe they read that before they come into the session when they read that passage fresh, so that if it's really a struggle for them and they're demotivated, then you can massage the situation to make sure that they are keeping up with their peers. So what do you think of this instructional routine, ladies, mostly ladies, maybe some gents? Could this be a routine that is an antidote to the problems around Roundrobin reading? Will it get more reading practice in for your kiddos? Will it likely improve their reading achievement and their fluency? I would love to hear what you think. Maybe you've already done something similar. Let me know what's going on to you guys, with you guys. And Jennifer says, yes, she likes the random turn taking to keep them paying attention. Yeah, maybe lay that joker card. Or what are some other ways you can get them to kind of be on high alert? Heather, one of our teachers in the Reading Simplified Academy, was doing a neat thing. She had gotten her kids past the early decoding stage, and it's the end of first grade. She's having them read nonfiction, and she had one child read a paragraph, and then she said, okay, Johnny, what did Sally read? So she was holding him accountable to the information, having to summarize it. So that was random. And the one video that I saw, he wasn't prepared. So it was good that they went back, and now he's going to be prepared next time, right? So there are a lot of ways to hold them accountable. It is true, Abigail, that some kids don't follow along. So that's definitely true of whole group. Oh, my gosh, it's terrible. But in the small group, while one kid's reading, I'm kind of half listening to whether they need my help, and I'm watching the rest, and I'm tapping their papers, making sure I see their eyes on print, and I make a big deal out of it. You can even make games out of it. So Sarah says the kids tend to memorize the level text, but it's harder to do that with the decodable text aligned with the phonics skills they're practicing. Yeah, some of the decodables they don't just fall off the tongue smoothly, and that's not necessarily a bad thing for a season. It's really important to get those eyes on text and see how every sound and symbol match up, and not have a pattern that's predictable, like I like rain, I like sun, I like trees. Those don't make the kids pay attention to the text as much as, say, these passages do. Let me show you the sample passage that I'm going to give today. I can pull it up. So how about I give this little passage to you now? Here we go. So which bug is red and has dots? What thing can jump? So it's playful. There is a little pattern in that there's a question, but the words are not predictable. And so the kids really have to pay attention, read those words, read the sounds. Notice it's a short E or a short O, and that's going to improve their decoding. But then when they go back and they reread and they reread and reread this passage and they get fluent and they can say which bug is red and has dots, then they learn the word which, the word is, the word and, the word has, and so forth. So, are you ready for that free passage? If you're not in the Reading Simplified Academy, then this will be a little sampler that you may not have seen before, and can be useful, particularly for those kids who are needing short vowel help. Hopefully that works. I see a little question mark before it. Let me try again. What do you think of this? Let's see if that one works. What do you think of this routine? Will this be something that can work for you or your teachers, or have you done it already like that? Oh, yes. Laura's making some good points here. She says that matching text to purpose, exactly. So right now, and a lot of what we talk about at Reading Simplified is getting that decoding foundation strong, not because it's the only thing that matters, but it's the thing that's the foundation, right? And so if we match our decoding goals with the text, then we're more likely to get success at building that foundation. And then with Reading Simplified, the system works so quickly that they're quickly into authentic readers. They don't have to spend a year practicing their phonics exclusively. They can pretty quickly develop enough sound-based decoding that they can start reading Henry and Mudge and High Flag Eye. And so then the authentic literature values kick in. So as Laura says, sometimes using decodable text that matches skills taught, that's critical. And she says sometimes it's not deep comprehension. It's not that you don't check on comprehension. Definitely check it at the end of the passage in general. But sometimes Laura thinks that people jump to their comprehension questions in primary small group instruction versus focusing on accuracy, fluency, etc. Right. That is a huge message that I would like to get out there from Reading Simplified. It's not that ultimately comprehension and deep thinking isn't the goal, but there's a window of time when we have to just learn to read the words, and we have to read them fast and fluently and accurately. That's what a good reader is. And good readers who, as Stanovich found, the good readers are the ones who have great sound-based decoding. They build on that foundation of sound-based decoding, and they become automatic with words, and then their fluency follows suit, so then they have the mental brain power to comprehend and think about what they're reading, read widely, enjoy literature. But we are not, in many places, giving that foundation to many kids. And so then when we jump to comprehension and they're struggling, maybe their struggle is not just at the comprehension level, but something more fundamental. So while decoding is the most important need at the beginning, or for anyone who's struggling, make sure you match your text to those purposes. Don't abandon comprehension, but don't make it your primary goal for the lesson until they're at that point where decoding is starting to flow and the fluency is coming. So if you think this routine is that we kind of discussed, let's see where it is. If you think this set of routines could help you, let me know. If there's something new here that you haven't heard, I would love to know what you think. And don't forget to tag a friend so you can be entered into that contest to win these Read It cards. So let's see, what else am I leaving out here? Oh, I'm leaving out the video. Are you ready to see a video? This is going to be an example, hopefully, of some of these principles. I didn't have all these principles executed. I wish I had done the turn taking randomly. So that's not happening in this video, but I am trying to watch the kids' eyes and I'm trying to give them all practice, and I'm also giving them feedback. So this is a little selection from some kids that I didn't know well in their beginning of their Reading Simplified journey. And then we'll call it a night after this video. Thank you for being here. Let's see if I can pull that video up. Look at your picture. What do you see? What kind of
snow day with Mom?
Oh, she's already read the title. Everybody point to the title.
A snow day with Mom.
What kind of day? What kind of day?
I said snow.
You nailed it. Okay. Oh wait, I need to see the pointing. I need to see the pointing. Point to the first line, please.
Mom showed me the snow.
Okay, we're going to take turns. Now it's your turn. Yeah, point though.
I can have fun in the snow.
Very good.
I can sled in the snow.
Okay, your turn.
Mom. Soup.
Listen.
Sled.
My sled.
Can go fast.
Nicely done. Your turn.
The wind blows.
Uh-huh.
I have my thick
Good work.
clothes.
I have my thick coat.
But I still get cold.
Mm-hmm. And it's your turn.
I go home. I sleep.
Nope, not quite. Let's check the first two sounds.
I slip. Slip.
Okay, you're adding a o. There's no o. Let's just do the first two sounds. No o. Put them together. Sip. Yes.
Sip.
I sipped. Do you know what it means to sip?
Chocolate.
Good guess. We'll work on that next. This is me sipping. Watch. Is that a sip? I take a sip.
You should take all them out.
Okay, so nope, we're gonna read our story, okay? I sip. Now let's do that last word. That's a challenging word. It's got two chunks. The first chunk is I sip hot cocoa. I sip hot cocoa. Who likes hot cocoa?
Me.
What is hot cocoa? Oh, okay, you know what it is. Okay, whose turn is it? Okay, what's that one? And your turn.
Thanks, Mom.
Okay, what happened in our story?
Whoever she is was flying off the
Yes, and who was she going with? So what did you think? Was that enough practice for those kids? They were getting more than, even though it was the beginning of their reading instruction with me, they were getting more than 12 words in because they were going to now reread it multiple times. They were each getting blend as you read support or phonics support if they needed it. I was trying to get them all to watch the print at the same time. And I thought they were doing pretty well, not maybe perfect, but it seemed like they were focused on the text. And then I ended it with a comprehension question. She actually did not answer that well, so I was starting to try to pull out a better summary because summarization is the number one thing you should start out with for all your kiddos. That's really kind of taxing and important. So I see that there's some questions on the sampler, the little short vowel sampler that I'm offering. If you find actually I'll pop the link in here. Here we go. This is the link, readingsimplified.com/short-vowel-sampler-2. and you'll be able to pull that up and take a little peek of what's in the Reading Simplified Academy for those beginning readers. And there's a lot of words in there, but don't let that intimidate you if you have an absolute beginner. Just read as many words with the children that you need to read for them, and have them maybe read one CVC or 3-sound word here or there, okay? So you can still get them into print really quickly. They don't have to rely on a predictable text like I like the sun, I like the sky, I like the clouds. They can be forced to look at text and learn how sound symbols are processed, and get the practice they need with the teacher support of doing this decoding strategies blend as you read. So I'm glad Michelle has seen some advantages of this this little routine. She says she's done something similar to this small group routine that I was suggesting with whole group poetry. Yes, poetry is a great way to sneak this in. Every day, let me see if I can find a place where I can read it. Oh, here we go. Now it's shrinking. Ooh, I did not mean to do that. Okay, sorry you guys. Here we try again. My setup's not as sophisticated as it is at home, but I'm having fun at camp. So she's done something similar with whole group poetry, and she's read every day for 1 week. Morning work includes practice reading before morning meeting. Then I ask students to choral read with emphasis. Excellent, get some intonation in there. And I asked small groups throughout the week to read for the rest of the class. And now I see how doing small group would let me focus on individualized students. Yes. And what's kind of important about this routine, that's kind of like one little tweak of what you're suggesting, I think, Michelle, is to have the students for the first time read it themselves. And so they have to do that hard decoding work. And why that is important is that's really the hard work that they need to do. Let me see if I can pull up that. These two authors said that the way that kids are becoming readers is that the good readers are having more positive learning trials. So let me see if I can pull that up for you. There we go. So the kids who are making good progress, they attack a word, they may be successful or they may not, but if the teacher helps them, then they have a positive learning trial. Each new word they attack is this training of the brain, and they're having success after success after success. And even if it takes a lot of teacher support, it still counts. And so that's what changes the dynamic for our readers. So hopefully, if you follow this routine or something like it, then you will be doing more of what the National Reading Panel found. Remember, they found that kids got better when there was repeated reading, where students were reading passages multiple times, and getting guidance and feedback from a lot of different sources, and that would be helpful for anyone who's starting out, and also through anyone of any age who was struggling. So I want you to consider this instructional routine and say goodbye to Roundrobin, but still incorporate some of the characteristics that are good with Roundrobin in giving each child an opportunity to get the teacher support, but doing it in a way that is strategic and gets so much practice in so that the kids come to you the next day successful with yesterday's passage. They've got a lot more high frequency words and they are ready to go. So thanks for being here. We will have session 4 of our summer series shortcuts next week, Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And the week after that, we'll see who has won the Read It word card. So tag a friend if you haven't already so that you can be entered into that competition to win this set of word cards. And thanks for being here to chat with us today, and let me know what you think of this routine. If you didn't have time to talk about it now, I'll still be coming back into comments hopefully and learn from you and give you better what you need maybe in the future if I know what's good for you and what's working and what could be tweaked on my end. So thanks, ladies and gents. Have a good evening. For those of you on summer break, happy summer. Keep enjoying it.